3 years ago, I came to talk to you. You were here, and I asked you if it was true that even though I was an atheist, I could still make moral decisions. You said no.
That is not what I said.
It's true.
All of my atheist friends live good lives. I do not have one atheist friend who lives a bad life.
Right. However, you told me that I was up a moral creek without a paddle.
When it came to, if you're an atheist, saying that there are moral absolutes, then you're contradicting yourself. But if you're an atheist and you consistently acknowledge morality is relative, you're being intellectually consistent. I respect you. But if you tell me there's no God, but there are moral absolutes, that's intellectual hypocrisy.
I'm here to talk about me being the president of the Secular Student Alliance. My friends at the Secular Student Alliance are here to protest your presence. Brothers Under Christ, of course, has invited you. That's all right.
Well, sounds like you're tolerant of Brothers Under Christ.
Certainly. But we'd like you to know that your message is not universally good or universally accepted. We have another side to the argument, and that's that your arguments are not inclusive to everyone. They are exclusive to Christians. They promote what is called tribalism, not to say that you're a member of a tribe, but it helps to create a tribal mentality around being Christian. And that's not at all what we want to have in America. That's not my idea of America. So, what I'd like to do is ask you, do you really think that you're helping?
I am convinced to the root of my being that if you and I put our faith in the man who died on a cross, and as he was dying, he prayed, Father, forgive these people who have nailed me to this cross. If you do that, you will become the essence of a tolerant person.
Go on.
Do you think tolerance is good?
Certainly.
Okay. Well, Jesus Christ points out that tolerance is not an option for a follower of his. Jesus Christ points out, through his dying on a cross and praying for his enemies, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus modeled real tolerance. So tolerance is not me saying to you, hey, Brian, you're an atheist, I'm a Christian, we agree. That's being brain dead. Rather, tolerance is, Brian, I respect your right to be an atheist, I respect your right to be a secularist, and now I want to find out, what is your problem with God? What is your problem with Christ? Why don't you believe in Christ? Why don't you believe in God?
It's easy, really. The reason why I don't believe in God is the reason why I don't believe in leprechauns or unicorns. It's simply impossible to say that they exist. Now, the problem is, of course, that we have these moral teachings that are based around God in the Christian tradition and in all of these other traditions. But we have other ways of making moral decisions. I'd like to congratulate you, by the way, on your ability to not own slaves. You definitely didn't get that from the Bible.
Yes, I did get that from the Bible.
No?
The Bible insists that slavery is wrong.
It insists that Christian slaves remain bound to their master.
No, it does not.
Yes, it
What it
does.
says is, Peter addresses and Paul address the issue, and if a slave is a follower of Christ, they are to respect their master. When Paul says, respect your master, when Peter says, respect your master, he is not saying that slavery is good. The same way when I go into a prison and when I go into a cell of a man who has kidnapped, raped, and murdered little boys, and then after that I go to the gymnasium to play with the other inmates, and they look me in the face and say, hey man, how can you talk to such a piece of dirt? Don't you know what he's done to little boys? And I say to them, yes, I deplore what he has done to little boys, but I still respect him as a human being created in the image of God. See, Brian, that's what you got to grapple with. That's what Paul and Peter are teaching followers of Christ who happen to be slaves. He's not saying slavery is good. What he is saying is you respect people, even when those people do wrong. You don't respect the wrong that they do, but you respect people. The same way when I walk into a prison cell and am confronted by a man who's kidnapped, murdered, and raped little boys, I don't respect what he did. Instead, I respect him as a human being created in the image of God. Does that make any sense?
It does, but I submit to you that your respect for him as a human being comes from the fact that you're a human being, not from the fact that you believe in God.
Okay, Brian, but the question is, why are human beings valuable? Why? Why respect a human being more than an ant? Why would you step on an ant but not on a human being? What is the basis of human worth? How do you think that through, Brian?
I reject the question. I don't think that there is an answer.
Thanks for your honesty. You're absolutely right. If there is no God, there is no fundamental, firm foundation to build a case for the value of human life. Why? Because if there is no God, your number came up in a Monte Carlo game. So did mine. We are cosmic accidents.
Yes, I think that's beautiful. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that we have a duty to make the most of it.
A duty? Who's your duty to?
Each other.
And where does that come from?
The fact that we are humans. The fact that we have sentience. We have a responsibility just from that.
Yes. And a bug is a bug. And a horse is a horse. And a pig is a pig. And a human is a human. So what? What is. We all realize what is. That doesn't mean that we have innate value just because we are. The tree is. The rock is. It exists. That doesn't mean there's innate value. You live your life, all of my atheist friends live their lives as if people have value. But the problem is there's no basis for that value because my atheist friends believe we're simply good-looking monkeys evolved to a higher order. Do you treat your children the same way you treat a monkey? Would you allow a zookeeper to put your child in a cage? I don't think so. So why do you differentiate between a monkey and your child?
This is a bit of a non sequitur, don't you think?
Non sequitur? Not when you have children.
You've begun this argument with tautology after tautology. All of these things that's by nature of them being things. What's the point of going into value arguments after that? How are you getting the question of value?
Because, Brian, these three friends of yours who are part of your secular society, you treasure them. You value them. You view them as important. You treasure their friendship, don't you?
I also treasure your friendship.
Well, thank you, Brian. And I treasure your friendship, okay? But then the question is, why do we treasure each other? Why do we value each other? Why is any human being worth anything? If we're simply cosmic accidents, we're only worth what we attach worth to. And if we attach worth to ourselves, great. But if we don't, so be it. In reality, we don't have worth. In reality, we're cosmic accidents if there is no God.
But in reality, I've attached worth to you and to everyone else.
Great. But what happens if tomorrow you wake up with a stomach ache and you decide that I'm not worth much? Does that change my worth because tomorrow you decide I'm not worth much?
I don't think a stomachache would do that. The worst stomachache in history. No, that is an immutable thing.
All right, Brian, I'm not going to tie it to a stomachache, but I think you know exactly what I'm talking, hopefully. You know very well that today and tomorrow you are not always going to treat people as if they have worth.
Certainly I am.
You and I are going to be mean. No, you and I are going to be selfish and mean. You and I are going to demean people in some way by ignoring, hurting people. By being absorbed with myself and my agenda. I will walk over people. So will you, Brian. We both are sinners. In other words, we will devalue people through sexist attitudes, through racist attitudes, through pride, through selfishness. We will devalue people, both of us. That's why we need God's forgiveness, because we both are dirty, rotten sinners.
Speak for yourself.
I am a dirty, rotten sinner. Are you a morally perfect person?
I have morality.
Are you morally
make moral
perfect?
decisions.
Do you always live up to your moral standards?
If I don't live up to my moral standards, I recognize that immediately.
Good.
Not immediately.
All right. Thanks for your honesty. Neither do I. I don't acknowledge my sins immediately
to recognize that, certainly. I don't think there needs to be a God involved for me to make changes to myself.
Well, when you feel guilty, who do you ask forgiveness from?
Person that I've wronged, I suppose.
Good. So you ask forgiveness from the person you've wronged. Very good. Now, according to Christ, that person has been created by God. And therefore, when I demean a person, I'm saying, hey, God, when you made that person, you did a lousy job. That's false. When God made all of us, he did a beautiful, wonderful job. That's why demeaning each other, however we do it, is sinful. It's wrong.
If I don't believe in God, how can I apologize to him? How can I say that I've demeaned God, a God that I don't believe in?
You're right. Intellectually, you don't believe in God. I hear you and I respect what you're saying. But you see, Brian, you can't live that out. Instead, the way you live your life is as if those three friends behind you, even I, you've said, have innate worth. Well, if a person has worth, what's the basis of that worth? Where does worth come from?
We're going around in circles a little bit.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm not giving up because I'm trying to help as many people here understand the point. It was made magnificently by Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, the great German philosopher.
I know him.
He poured scorn on his atheistic, humanistic friends who said, there is no God, but people really are valuable. But love really is important. And Nietzsche said, I'm sorry, fellas, you don't have the intellectual courage to face the logical conclusions of what you say you believe. If there is no God, love is not real, human worth is not real, morality is all relative, something's not absolutely evil or absolutely good, it's all relative, which means life is meaningless. I respect Nietzsche for the way he realized if there is no God, life is a crapshoot. It's ultimately meaningless.
Sorry to hear that. I feel love every day. I feel love for my fellow man.
And that is one of the biggest pieces of evidence that God loves you and that he's drawing you to himself.
No, how can you say that there's a man in the sky after that? It's insane.
You're right. I don't believe in a man in the sky, okay? There's a spiritual being, a mind, who is really, really big, who created this cosmos, and this God really loves you and loves me and wants to live in relationship with us. Now, Brian, if that's true, that's the most important news in the universe.
It would be.
Exactly. So that's why you got to read the Gospels and check out.
That's a big if, don't you think? That's a real big if.
Not based on the way you want to view people as having worth.
No.
Not based on the way you want to live your life,
instinct.
that good and evil are real. Not based on the evidence that you want to live your life as if there's meaning to life. See, all of that stuff points to the existence of some type of God.
No, it points to me being a friendly person.
Well, that's great that you're a friendly person. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But remember, if you define friendliness tomorrow the opposite way you define it today, that's totally legit. Remember? You just define it, right? So if today you define a friend as being someone who is compassionate and loving and honest, but tomorrow you say a friend is someone who cuts people off at the knees, that's not wrong. Because there is no absolute right or wrong. It's all relative. So if tomorrow you want to define friendship as stealing someone's backpack, that's legitimate.
Let me ask you something. Does God also have the capacity to do this? Does he say now it is good to cut people off at the knees? Or rather, can he say this? Or does he say things are good because they're already good?
Great question. Because God is eternal, meaning by that God has a character that is eternal, And because God's character is just and good, the value of justice has been defined by God's character throughout eternity.
Where did his character come from? Is his character built around things that are already good?
No. God didn't come from anywhere because God is eternal. God is an uncaused being. He is eternal, which means God doesn't come from anywhere. He's eternal.
Do you realize this is the only concept that has no cause? The only concept in the human discourse that has no cause. We say that the Big Bang happened, but we don't know what caused it. We don't say it definitely has no cause. How can anything not have a cause?
Great point. So then the question is, 15 billion years ago, approximately, what caused or who caused the Big Bang?
We don't know.
All right. Well, what you've got to ask yourself is it more plausible to think that the Big Bang just happened in isolation?
Yes.
Or is it more plausible to believe that there's a cause? If there is a cause for the Big Bang, who or what is that cause?
We don't know. That's absolutely outside of the theory.
Okay. Albert Einstein, who had a decent IQ, to put it mildly, realized that the Big Bang clearly pointed to the existence of some type of God. Einstein did not want there to be a God because Einstein was a pantheist. He worshiped nature. That's why Einstein loved the idea that nature, matter and energy are eternal. Einstein began to realize, oops, if the Big Bang is true, it means that matter and energy and nature are not eternal. It means there's some type of God. And that's why Einstein put the fudge factor into his mathematical equation to try and disprove the Big Bang. Sir Einstein realized if the Big Bang occurred about 15 billion years ago, it points to some type of intelligent mind, some type of creator. And that's why Einstein moved on to say, after the discovery of the Big Bang, I want to know God's thoughts.
The fudge factor in his equations is for the expansion of the universe, not for God.
The fudge factor was used by Einstein to disprove the Big Bang.
No, it's
yes, it
to
was.
make it general. It's to make it actually applicable to what we see in the universe.
Einstein was confronted by a mathematician who said, you've made a mistake mathematically. And you probably did it intentionally because it's not a difficult thing to see. And Einstein admitted it. I put that fudge factor into my equation because I realize the logical consequences of the Big Bang theory. It points to some type of creator. It's that simple. That's what Einstein clearly communicated.
Even if Einstein had said that, would he have been somehow privy to the existence of God? Isaac Newton did the same. He spent the rest of his life after 27 trying to prove some mystical hand-wavy nonsense. All of his achievements were when he was a young man. Now, we don't benefit from that. His argument that there is a God is not what makes the theory amazing. That's either Newton or Einstein. What makes it amazing is that it actually describes the universe. God isn't part of that. If he created the universe, then at the very most, he must have set it in motion and done nothing else for the rest of the history of the universe.
And that's what Thomas Jefferson believed. That's deism. God is the mind that created the universe, set it in motion, and steps back and is an aloof deity, uninvolved. And Thomas Jefferson and the deists believed exactly that, Brian. You articulated that well.
Thank you.
What Jesus Christ insisted is, God is not an aloof deity. God actually loves you and me, and created us to live in relationship with us. And of course, the incarnation of Christ is this incredible claim that the God who created the cosmos has stepped into space and time by becoming a human being in Jesus of Nazareth.
That's exactly what I'm saying is impossible.
Okay, why is that impossible?
Because to say that there has been a God intervening in our universe since the Big Bang is directly in contrast with the idea of a Big Bang.
How?
Because God must have set everything in motion since. He cannot intervene afterwards.
Why can God not intervene afterwards?
Because he doesn't exist.
Thank you for your honesty. And you and I both know that was a cop-out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. I like your honesty, Brian. I like it.
In this hypothetical, there would have been a God to set every value, every physical constant. And since then, those are immutable. He would be adhering to his own rules 100%. He cannot intervene.
He cannot intervene. All right, what happens if God chooses to limit his power by giving me a free will? If I haul back and slap him in the face and turn to you and say, Brian, God made me hit him in the face, would you believe that?
No, I'd say you were a jerk.
Good. Well put, Brian. All right, so what Jesus and the Bible insist is the all-powerful God chose to partially limit his power by giving me a free will, which means I can take out my wallet and give him money for dinner, or I can haul back and smack him in the face. God makes me do neither. But God on a day of judgment will judge me if I choose to haul back and slap him in the face. He will judge me. Why? Why would God judge me? Because I have free will, which means I'm responsible for slapping him. Does that make any sense?
It made sense until you said that there would be a day of judgment. But once again, God is not going to intervene. I posit to you that it's because he doesn't exist. But in the hypothetical,
all right,
the hypothetical that allows for the existence of God while still explaining our universe.
Right. Okay.
He simply does not intervene because he's already set the universe in motion.
All right. Now you, Brian, are an atheist, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, right now, where is Adolf Hitler, Mother Teresa, and the people who died in Paris at the hands of the terrorists last week? Where are all those people?
They do not exist.
Exactly. They do not exist. They're all in the same place, the fertilizer pit, according to your worldview. Which means, Brian, ultimately...
I like to think that we've treated some of them with more dignity than that.
Brian, if you limit reality to matter and energy, it's rather obvious that Hitler's body is decomposed, Mother Teresa's body is decomposed, and the bodies of the people blown away by the terrorists last week in Paris are in the process of decomposing. We're all becoming dirt if there is no God. Now, in light of that fact, Brian, it doesn't matter, ultimately, whether you become Adolf Hitler II or Mother Teresa II, whether you become like the people in Paris who got blown away or whether you become like the terrorists who blew them away. It's all meaningless because we're all headed to the same place. And what you do with your life is ultimately meaningless. It's ultimately insignificant. Do you see, that is why despair is honest atheism. Does that make any sense?
No. I think of myself as an honest atheist, and I don't despair at all.
I think you are running away from the logical consequences of your atheism. And I'm not saying that just as a theist. Nietzsche said that. Camus said it. Sartre said it. All of them brilliant atheists, as did Bertrand Russell. You can't escape the conclusion, logically, that if there is no mind who created you for a purpose, and if there is no day of judgment when you will have to give an answer for what you've done with your life, then it doesn't matter what you do with your life. So if you want to be Adolf Hitler II, go right ahead. If you want to be Mother Teresa II, go right ahead. It's just your choice. Choice is God. And if you choose to be Hitler II, that's your choice. If you choose to be Teresa II, that's your choice. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. It's all relative. Meaning by that, it doesn't really matter.
I think I've made clear my position on this matter. But I would like to thank you for having me.
Ryan, it's been a delight to meet you.